What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Saturday, everybody. It's a two video kind of a day because yesterday something dropped from Ross Coulthart and Bryce Zabel on the Need to Know podcast. And Ross is talking about the potential of both China and Russia being the first country to disclose something. Last week, we saw there was like a parade in Russia where President Xi visited the country and he was photographed alongside Vladimir Putin enjoying the parade. Who knows what they spoke about? But after the Harold Malmgren interview, Harold was one of the first people high up like him to mention Majestic 12 in such like a public fashion. Honestly, when I heard him talking about it, that was one of the most shocking parts of the whole video for me. That and the time traveling part at the end. And now there seems to be like some kind of a put together effort by multiple fronts to talk about this narrative of a new arms race or a new Cold War. And a new Cold War that apparently has been happening for the better part of 60 years or so. When the Age of Disclosure documentary comes out, that's the narrative that they're gonna try to point you towards. I don't want for people to feel like this is just a fear mongering tactic from folks who are very aligned with aerospace companies and the tech bros companies that are just trying to monetize the tech in order to get more weapons, in order to perpetuate war. Because, yeah, it is possible that these NHI could be a threat, but why would you think that it's smart to tackle this separated as we are right now as countries instead of trying to tackle it if these NHI are a purported threat together? I would say that it makes more sense that first we fix the problems we have amongst each other and stop fighting and start thinking collectively if there is some sort of a threat that it may be looming and potentially approaching Earth. I think it's just stupid to keep looking at this war scenario amongst ourselves while there could be a potential threat from somewhere else. It's just dumb. And Ross just uncovered what might be potentially going on. And it has been talked about for a while, but he just released a little more information about what he claims to know from his sources. That, yeah, crash retrievals have been happening, and it hasn't just been the Office of Global Access from the CIA who have been doing this. Apparently, all three countries, China, Russia, and the US, have been fighting over these materials and these crashed craft for decades. And they've been racing towards who gets the most paradigm shifting technology so they can dominate the world. That's the stupid ass logic they use and they keep using. And I don't know what we need to do. I would say that a first logical good step would be to probably unite all of the efforts from people like Ross, like people in the government who are trying to look at this seriously, people in the Chinese government who are trying to look at this seriously, and people from the Russian government who are trying to look at this seriously for the benefit of all humanity, not just for their country, not with that logic of national security for my country, not yours. I would think that a good idea would be to get all those offices together, sit them down in a table, and try to brainstorm the best way to get all governments to reach an agreement of a ceasefire that hasn't happened yet amongst the countries that are currently in conflict, and identify that this is a reality and that it needs to be addressed. But before that happens, we need to stop fighting. Makes no sense to me that we're still doing this. And I'm pretty sure that it makes no sense to any of you either. And Bryce Zabel, bless his heart, he's always asking Ross tough questions that pretty much nobody else asks him. Because, you know, I've seen the dynamic that these two have, and Bryce always has real doubts about the processes that go on, and the secrecy and the process that Ross goes through when he's digging up a story. And right now, the question that he asked is it possible that there is another country that is already gearing up towards their disclosure ahead of the US? And this is what Ross responded. I'm going to show it to you guys because I think it's really interesting.
What better way to undermine the credibility of an America that has grounded itself as the nation of freedom, democracy, openness, and transparency than for, say, Vladimir Putin in Russia or President Xi in China to actually go public and say, ladies and gentlemen, it is China, it is Russia that is going to tell you the truth. You know, we have been slurred by America and accused of being the authoritarian regime, but it is America that has been hiding these dark secrets for all of these years, spending public money on a massive project that it has concealed illegally from the Congress. You know, it would be an enormous propaganda coup for either Putin or Xi to do that. And I'm surprised they haven't to date, because I am assured that the Russians and the Chinese have their own equivalent program. And the large part of the reason why it's been kept secret for the last 60 years is because they've all been competing for the retrieval of technologies. I'm told there have been overseas retrievals by US military teams. And I think that that is very significant, because at times those have been done in competition with rival foreign adversary nations. That's the significance of what is going on here. And if you remember, Bryce, David Grush spoke to me in 2023 about a secret Cold War going on over the retrieval of non-human technology. And so now we've got David in the office of Representative Eric Burleson, who is taking, as you would have noticed, an extremely aggressive role in asking some very hard questions. It was Representative Burleson, commendably, who this week, when Dr. Eric Davis was sitting in the chair under cross-examination by the Oversight Committee, it was Eric Burleson who extracted from Eric Davis the quite incredible series of assertions when he was asking him about what kind of alien species are involved in these craft. And Eric Davis, without batting an eyelid, he talked about greys, he talked about Nordics, and he talked about reptilians and insectoids. Bang. Four alleged alien species named in the Congress. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. And I think a lot is happening behind the scenes in Eric Burleson's office. I can tell you, I know a lot more than I'm able to reveal publicly. David Grush is having a lot of fun, and there is much, much more.
By the way, there you have it. And what worries me is that, yeah, there has been this secret Cold War going on, but I think that all countries are approaching it with the same adversarial mentality against each other, without realizing that if there is some kind of a threat looming, they need to be talking to each other and not warring against each other. I keep going back to that film, Arrival, where the world was nearly plunged into a war against these NHI because they didn't talk to each other, because of this mentality that they have of national security, which I already told you guys, it's kind of like a cover for just manufacturing more technology and more weapons and to keep this superiority. This is an indoctrination that people get within the intelligence and military, and even amongst politicians from the early stages of their careers. And not everybody gets indoctrinated like that, because the smart ones learn to discern when they're being indoctrinated and they just reject it. But unfortunately, the vast majority are indoctrinated like that. And this is a kind of mentality that needs to change. It's not just the stigma, guys. The stigma is something that is starting to recede when they're talking about UFOs. They're not sent instantly to the psych ward anymore or to the therapist anymore. But there's this other type of mentality of looking at everything as if it was a threat all the time that also needs to change alongside the stigma. Because if it doesn't, we are doomed, plain and simple. And what needs to happen? What kind of diplomatic approach do we need? Do we need another Harold Malmgren? Is there already another Harold Malmgren amongst us that can settle all of these powerful people down and talk to them about the consequences that will come inevitably from having this mentality and this indoctrination? Who could it be? Let me know in the comments, and let me know what you think about what Ross just told you about, because I think it's very significant. And we can all see where this conversation is going now. When the age of disclosure comes out, that's going to be the main talking point. There's an arms race going on between the three superpowers in the world, and the main goal is to be the first to either crack or announce this technology. That's extremely concerning because they're not using it for the betterment of humanity. They're using it for country superiority over others. Think about that. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you can get notified when a new video drops. If you want to support the channel in any other way, I'm going to ask you to pick a link from the description. You can become a member. You can support us on KGRA. Anything you choose to do, thank you for your support, as always. And that's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive, always. Bye.